How's it going, everyone? In this video, we're going to be talking about Sadako and more specifically why she feels so weak and ways to increase her threat level. For those of you who probably don't know, Sadako is my main even at high MMR. That said, it can sometimes feel like you have no options at all when playing against really top tier second chancers. With the release of the Dredge, it's more evident than ever that her kit is very underwhelming. As much as I wish I could say Sadako is better than Dredge in at least one way, I just can't. Dredge is the Super Saiyan version of her, so in order to make changes to Sadako, we first have to review what makes her underwhelming in the first place. There's three primary issues. The first is dead hard, and it's such a significant issue that the question literally needs to be asked: does Sadako need buffed, or does dead hard just need nerfed to make her sufficiently viable at high MMR? It's such an important question that I asked you guys about it, and the majority of you came to the same conclusion as myself, which is both, and we'll dive into why soon. So what are the other issues? Sadako has map presence, but not map pressure like the Dredge. She can get around the map quickly, but with complete predictability and little to no impact. The blame for this, in my opinion, is not on the lack of strong anti-loop. It's her condemned passive ability. It's supposed to artificially slow the game down enough so that you can entertain more chases with survivors like Pig and Pinhead, but it's failing, so we'll address why and what can be done to change that. Her last issue, and probably smallest, is that I believe she has too many audio cues. She's a stealth killer that just constantly makes noise. It kinda reminds me of how Demogorgon has stealth coming out of his portals, but not only do you hear the teleport, but you also hear incredibly loud footsteps. So that's another thing we'll be addressing in this video. I want to add that it is 100% not my intention to turn Sadako into some kind of top tier killer. The thing that attracts me to playing her in the first place is the level of difficulty involved in actually winning against good players and the endorphin hit for doing so successfully. And after playing Sadako for as much as I have, I think there's a lot of fair ways to increase the lethality of her kit. As we move through the video, keep in mind that not all of these ideas would need to be implemented together. Contrary to popular belief, Sadako does have chase utility, albeit weak. She can use her passive phasing accompanied by certain add-ons to get hits at moderately safe loops. She doesn't have to completely rely on hit and run in order to get downs. However, both playstyles suffer from the same weakness: dead hard. Her entire strength comes from catching survivors off guard, regardless if she's hit and running or chasing. But when you catch a survivor off guard, you almost always have a very short split-second window to get that hit, and that's why dead hard just completely destroys her. So even if dead hard gets changed or nerfed down the road in some way, I think it will always be problematic to a severe degree against Sadako specifically, unless the perk just gets completely reworked and turned into something else entirely. That's why I'd build counter exhaustion into Sadako's kit directly, not through an add-on. Now obviously this can be done in multiple ways. The first and most simple option is to just make it to where anyone who is within 16 meters of an active TV becomes exhausted for 10 seconds, sort of like a better version of Mindbreaker. This would incentivize turning TVs off more and massively reduce the issue. More TVs being turned off means more passive condemned as well. This change to Sadako is probably the most realistic and easy way to fix her entirely. However, what I would really like to see with Sadako is an overhaul of her condemned ability. I think it's pretty obvious that as of right now, it's pretty much just a gimmick and doesn't really do anything. Playing Sadako on stream, I've heard an abundance of great ideas on what could be done with condemned to make it an actual threat. And if I'm consistently hearing great ideas about what behavior could do with something in DBD, it's usually a sign that the idea was poorly implemented in the first place. Now, the most complex change would involve adding tiers to her condemned. A lot of the Ringu concepts we reviewed on the channel a while back did this. For example, tier 1 you become exhausted. Tier 2, Sadako's demanifested visibility range is reduced by like a few meters. Tier 3, your skill checks become more difficult. Tier 4, you start seeing visions of Sadako or fake Sadakos, kind of like Doctor. Tier 5 could be oblivious. Tier 6, you suffer from the exposed status effect, and Tier 7, you can finally be moried. However, something like this would make the mori even less likely, but would overall make Sadako much more of a dynamic threat throughout a match. I would also like to see more curse passing. For those who don't know, in Ringu, you save yourself by passing the curse on to other people. So when you put the tape in to get rid of your condemned, it should spread it slightly to the rest of your teammates. And before you say, well, couldn't you just grief your teammates with that? Yes, you could, but you can do that anyway, and in more severe ways, so I don't see that as really a valid counter argument. Now that we've covered exhaustion, we need to talk about how condemned actually works, or I guess I should say doesn't work. Otsdarva made a short video about this recently where he basically pointed out that if you understand how condemned functions, there's nearly zero chance it will ever have an impact on your match as a survivor. Condemned has nearly nothing to do with Sadako at all. It's like an opt-in difficulty slider that the survivors can choose to engage with. This isn't unique to Sadako. Plague has to rely on survivors' cleansing, Victor can be kidnapped if you're playing the twins, and Bubba needs to down you in order to face camp you. The difference when it comes to Sadako is that there's no downside to avoiding her power. If she's crawling out of a TV, you can just run away. With sometimes the small exception of lucky TV placement RNG, her bloody fingernail add-on, which should be base kit, or a mix of both. In addition, if a survivor plays sloppy and somehow ends up condemned, they can still usually run to a TV and insert the tape even if they're in the middle of being chased. So whether the ideas we already discussed are implemented or behavior uses their own ideas, there needs to be an actual reason for survivors to worry about the condemned system. They need to be forced to deal with it, whether it's passively like Pinhead or through a severe survivor debuff like Plague. The last point of her power that should be looked at is her predictability. Stealth killers live and die on their ability to catch survivors off guard. Teleporting to a TV mid-chase won't work if the survivors can hear that you're teleporting. The same goes for the sound effects of her demanifesting. She's not Wraith or Pig, she has no increased lunge and can be seen from 24 meters away while demanifested. She 100% relies on hiding her line of sight. Sometimes that means she needs to take longer, more unpredictable pathing to avoid being seen early and getting W keyed. And yes, contrary to popular belief, even normal M1 killers get W keyed. So we went over a simple fix, a complex fix, and addressed her predictability issues. I believe it would be easy to mix any of these concepts or ideas together and create something reasonable that makes Sadako more than just the lesser version of the Dredge. Alright, well that sums up my thoughts on the Onryo. She's still my favorite killer in the game, but I'm curious to hear your ideas on Condemned specifically. I think it's such a shallow ability in its current form that there's bound to be a ton of great ideas, and I'm interested in what you guys come up with. And as always, thanks for watching and have a good one.